There are also bets that are being placed as well on the Iran conflict too, and there have been some trackings where people suspect that there's insider trading happening on these prediction markets around the war. Are you concerned?
Well, you know, the whole world, unfortunately, has become somewhat of a casino. And you look at what's going on all over the world, in Europe and every place they're doing these betting things. I was never much in favor of it. I don't like it conceptually, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. These prediction markets are all over the place, operating even in states or countries where it's illegal to do so. And people are putting billions of dollars on bets on real world events. And those with information and access to power are definitely gaming the system with it. But as Donald Trump makes clear, it is what it is. What am I gonna do? Anything about it? No, I don't care. That's how Trump is on everything, right? When he's bothered by something, he just accepts it fatalistically. Like if he feels like there's too many immigrants coming in, he just shrugs his shoulders. No, weirdly, in this area, he doesn't feel like action is necessary. Perhaps because he and everyone in that room are almost certainly doing the exact thing that's being talked about. But although there is no move to investigate the obvious insider trading going on in these prediction markets in the White House, there are arrests being made, actually. We have one, that is the DOJ arresting a soldier who made over $400,000 betting on the removal of the president formerly of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. According to Forbes, yesterday afternoon, the Justice Department unsealed an indictment in the Southern District of New York that named the Polymarket whale known to on-chain sleuths for months simply as Burdensome Mix. That account apparently belonged to Master Sergeant Gannon Ken Van Dyke, a 38-year-old Special Forces soldier stationed at Fort Bragg and assigned to the Army's Special Operations Command Western Hemisphere operations. So he apparently had access to sensitive, non-public, classified information about Operation Absolute Resolve, that is the operation which he was involved in, to both plan and execute the raid that captured Maduro and his wife. And he acted on that information. Between the 27th of December of last year and the evening of January 3rd, he placed 13 yes bets totaling roughly $33,000 across 4 Polymarket contracts tied to the operation that he was working on. You can see them here, having to do with US forces in Venezuela by January 31st, Maduro out by January 31st, will the US invade Venezuela by January 31st, and Trump invokes war powers against Venezuela by January 31st. So there was a lot of betting on this, something like $15 million, but his $33,000 sure paid off, okay? You can see that overall there was like 8.4 million in volume, but he walked away with nearly $410,000 in profit, which he perhaps suspected might have legal ramifications because he immediately moved most of it to a foreign cryptocurrency vault, routed through a VPN with an exit node in another country, and then asked Polymarket to delete his account. Aside from like unloading a pistol into the monitor of his computer, I don't know what else he could have done to try to hide the thing. The issue is that they did track it down, and he is now charged with 3 counts of violating the Commodity Exchange Act, which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years per count. He's also charged with 1 count of wire fraud and 1 count of unlawful monetary transaction. So there have been other criminal investigations for insider trading. I believe he's the first in US history involving a prediction market. He's the 3rd alleged prediction market insider on record the past 12 months. Again, just this is the first in the US. So we can get into more of the specifics and in other countries, what we've seen here. But Jordan, I do find it, look, it's obvious what he did. It is illegal and bad. I guess we could have that debate. I just think it's interesting to find out that, oh, Polymarket can reveal this information. Oh, the DOJ can investigate these sort of insider trading when it's a soldier who's not rich, he's not politically connected or whatever. I mean, we know that there are people in the White House doing this, but evidently it is what it is according to Donald Trump. What do you think?
I mean, I hate these things. I hate this whole industry. Like, full disclosure, I've used one of them for sports because sports gambling is like not legal, sportsbook in California. But the idea of like betting on war, betting on life events that are easy to manipulate is just a guarantee that you create an insider trading industry. I knew someone, an older one. This isn't new. There was another one called Predict It that was just like explicitly politics. And even someone who worked there years ago told me, it's like, yeah, this just feels like an insider trading thing for people on the Hill to just bet on what they know is going to happen. That's bad. Like the design invites insider trading, and all you're doing is ripping off people who don't have inside knowledge. It's a transfer of wealth upward. I hate all of it. I hate the sponsorships. I've rejected a sponsorship from Kalshi because I don't like it. Sure, the money would be nice, but I would feel guilty taking it. And I think it's morally and inherently wrong. So I'm not surprised that we now have people betting on stuff that they are actively doing. I'd love to see the same scrutiny applied to people who are betting on oil futures that just so happens to coincide with new Trump announcements on Iran.
100%. The oil future, which like I think that Donald Trump's True Social activity is mainly to generate insider trading at this point, whether it's prediction markets bets or, as you say, the futures trading on oil, which we've now had multiple rounds of it. It is obvious that there is insider trading going on in the White House. Possibly Donald Trump's immediate family. Barron Trump, I'm hearing, is evidently like a god tier investor with his timing, weirdly enough. And that's why I'm frustrated about this. Like, the guy did break the law. There's a case to be made that since he bet that it would work, that inspired him to work harder on the mission, I suppose. But he shouldn't be doing it. I agree. And by the way, I have a feeling we'll get into the calls for a pardon. I think he's going to get one. I just think it's wild that he gets investigated and not the White House. It literally is in like the top 10 things that I want the Democrats to do once they retake Congress in the midterms, is to do a massive in-depth investigation into this in the White House. And I agree. I mean, like, this is just me. I only speak for myself. I don't think that these things should exist. Or at the very least, they should be regulated. Or at the very least, until they're regulated, I don't understand how they could be donating to politicians. Like, they're buying politicians when there's like no scrutiny whatsoever already. That seems wildly unfair and corrupt. But anyway, there have been other investigations like this. Israeli prosecutors indicted an Israeli Air Force Reserve major and a civilian associate for leaking classified strike plans back in February. That was on Polymarket as well. And it makes sense that military officers would be being, brought up on this because they have this information. They know the timeline. I just also think the idea that like Pete Hegseth isn't doing any of this just seems ridiculous to me, considering what we know of their ethics. We've got 16 days later in February, on-chain analytics firm Bubble Maps flagged 6 freshly funded wallets that had collectively cleared roughly 1.2 million on yes positions for US strikes on Iran, with top holders clustered in a suspiciously uniform $42,000 to $62,000 range. I don't know what that is about. But as you pointed out, like, this is the prediction market part of it. I think the oils future stuff is way bigger money generally. And you don't need to know much. You know a timeline. You know when Donald Trump is going to tweet something. Donald Trump has a very specific ability to trigger shifts in the market that clearly some people know about, whether he is sharing the information for that purpose or whether just people around him, White House aides or whatever, are writing up the tweets for him so they know it's about to happen. It is clearly happening. Now, in those cases, there were no US charges. What sets Van Dyke apart is proximity. So the IDF case involved a reserve major acting as a conduit. The Iran wallets remain suited. They're not tied to the specific person. Van Dyke was actually on the mission. He's the most direct person. But again, as we've been laying out, there's been just as close a connection between policy pronouncements or declarations about ceasefires, and those have not yet received the same sort of investigation. So that said, Todd Blanche puts out this whole statement about how it's super serious. They can't be using this classified information for personal enrichment. Representative Anna Paulina Luna puts out a tweet saying it may not be a popular take, but I'm calling for this guy to be pardoned. There is no justice when guys like this get the book thrown at him, yet members are illegally profiting every day. She has introduced a discharge petition to ban insider trading by members of Congress. So, like, on one level, it's kind of it's not a consistent position because she's calling for him to not be prosecuted. I guess she's saying let's have the same standard, which makes some sense. In either event, I think there needs to be way more investigation. Any other thoughts, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, there was also I think Kalshi yesterday announced that they found 3 politicians betting on their own races. One of them was a Senate candidate in Virginia who bet on a market about who would enter the race, and he bet on himself. Then once he was caught, suspended, and was trying to spin it into like, well, actually, I hate this whole industry, and I'm so glad you did this. You fell right into my trap. Don't know if I believe him, but it's just like, we saw another one earlier this week about the hottest recorded day in France on Polymarket, and somebody went to a sensor at an airport that was unguarded and just blew a portable hairdryer on the sensor to spike the temperature that it detected, and he cashed out. Like, what? Why do we need this? Why do people need to gamble on little things in life? It's symptomatic of a very bad state of affairs globally in our collective society. And I think a lot of people turn to it out of despair. And I think that's something that needs to be rectified before we ever get to the bottom of this problem of insider trading.
Yeah, in terms of the arguments that have been made for why it should exist, and I think fairly good responses to that, I will point everyone to John Oliver's recent episode on prediction markets. But yeah, I feel a similar way as I do about the rapid proliferation of sports betting apps. The fact that you cannot watch TV, let alone sports, without having that advertisement. I literally can't drive around my home city without seeing the advertisement. And I really do feel like this is a sort of, it's preying on people's ever increasing economic anxiety. We don't feel like we can own a home. We don't feel like we can own stocks, but I have like 10 books that I guess I could bet. And then you combine that with the incredibly predatory algorithms in these apps, their ability to push notifications to you. I am very worried about a generation just having every spare cent sucked out of their accounts. And bear in mind, like when this guy makes $400,000 off this bet, that money didn't just like fall out of a tree. He got that from other people who didn't have the insider trading. A lot of those are just regular people. You look at, I've seen an analysis that like some massive percentage of all of the money that has ever been won on Polymarket has gone to a very tiny percentage of the accounts. And so like some people might think, well, at least I can use the information I have. No, like you don't have the information that the winners have, almost certainly.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.